Hello everyone, this is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and this video is mostly just going to be clips that I threw together from when my husband and I recently decorated gingerbread cookies together. I had already baked the cookies, so this is now just me making the icing first. My icing recipe comes from Sally's Baking Addiction, though I have tweaked it a little bit with flavoring sometimes. But today I'm just going to do a vanilla icing. I started off by measuring out the powdered sugar, meringue powder, vanilla, and water. I am using my stand mixer with the whisk attachment, and I'm going to let all of this mix on high speed. Just scraping the edges periodically to make sure that it all gets mixed together nice and evenly. I decided to make my icing quite a bit thicker than usual this time because my husband would be decorating with me, and he hasn't ever decorated cookies with icing in piping bags before. So I figured I would rather have the icing be thicker than potentially just kind of running everywhere. Now I am going to color the icing with some gel food coloring, and just to make things a little bit easier, the only colors that we decided we wanted to use were red, green, and white. Just dip a toothpick in there and mix it all together. In the red food coloring, I usually need quite a bit of it. And now I'm going to fill our piping bags. I only have this one reusable piping bag, and then the other two that I'm going to use are disposable, which also work pretty okay, but I'm just always so bad at trimming the edges or the tips off of the bags. And I feel like it never comes out the same every time. And then now we are on to decorating the cookies. We are starting out by outlining these tree cookies, and I'm first just showing my husband the general technique, though I am also still very amateur at cookie decorating. We're outlining the cookies first before we flood them, though I think with how thick my icing was, we could have just flooded them right away. For cookie shapes, we had these trees, and then we also did stockings, gingerbread men, candy canes, and snowmen. I think outlining cookies is just so satisfying, so I was just kind of going through a few of these really quickly, and then my husband took over for these last two while I got the white icing ready to use next. It is very satisfying watching the outline of the cookies come together. So I am doing white at the top of the stockings and then just filled it in, and I am showing my husband how to spread out the icing with a toothpick so that he could start filling in the Christmas trees. Though he ended up making it much harder for himself by not putting as much icing, and then later we also realized that he had been using just the side of the toothpick rather than the point like I was doing, so I think that also just generally made it harder to spread out in a good clean way. But honestly, they got iced, and that's kind of all that matters. And we had a lot of fun doing this together. We just put a Yule log stream on the TV with some Christmas jazz and just kind of decorated away. And even if they don't turn into the most aesthetic cookies, cookies. They still tasted good. They looked kind of cute, and we had lots of laughs doing them together, which I think is kind of the most important thing. So we're just going through filling out the rest of the cookies and just doing the rest of the stockings while my husband finishes out the Christmas trees. I think each time I decorate cookies, I get a little bit better handling the piping bag. So I think it really is just one of those kind of like the more you practice types of things, the better you're going to get at it. But I don't make cookies a ton. I've made them quite a bit more this last year than I think I ever have before. But it's just been a lot of fun kind of getting into it a bit more. Now I'm going to start on these candy canes, and I had actually seen a trick on Instagram that I wanted to try, though I couldn't quite fully remember exactly what it was. So for this first candy cane, I did a base of white icing first and just spread that out to the edges. I don't think that the white icing was as thick as the red and the green because I didn't need to kind of mix it more in order to get the coloring in. So now I also know that if I want to color icing, I can just kind of thin it out with a few drops of water after I've done the coloring, just to get it kind of back to a good consistency. And then while the icing was still wet on the candy cane, I did little dots of red icing through the middle, and then just dragged a toothpick around the outside edge of the dots first, and then back down on the inside edge. And you just get this adorable little candy cane shape. I thought it turned out pretty cute, but while I was doing it, I had remembered that they actually did a base of red icing with white dots in the video I'd seen, so I wanted to try that just to see if I liked that better. You can see my husband over there struggling with spreading out the icing. He was still doing a pretty good job though, even if he was using the side of the toothpick. I laid down the icing base for both of the candy cane cookies before doing the white dots on them. And just spreading that icing right to the edge. Yeah, working with the red icing right after the white, the red was definitely a little bit thicker. But again, it was okay. It worked out, and we didn't have icing mishaps everywhere. Like the icing was kind of staying exactly on the cookies where we put it. But I think if I had just been doing the cookies on my own, I definitely wouldn't have made it this thick. And then again, just putting white dots right on top of that wet icing. And taking my toothpick and just dragging it around. I ended up really liking the red a lot more than the white, and this is such a simple trick, and I really loved it. I think doing wet on wet icing, there are so many easy tricks like this that you can still get like a really very pretty cookie that makes it look like you did a lot more than you actually did. Then I started outlining and filling in this one snowman while my husband put some little sweaters on our gingerbread men. The candy canes were kind of the only cookies that I had a decoration plan for. So the other ones, we were just kind of winging it a bit for the decorations and just kind of did whatever our little hearts desired in that moment. And I had actually seen a trick to use granulated sugar on top of icing just to give it a little sparkle and texture. So I tried that on the first snowman, and I didn't really care for it because it was sparkly, but it also kind of made it look fuzzy, which we realized would be pretty good for the whites on the stockings instead. So I ended up just doing that later. Then I'm going to finish up the other 3 candy canes. Every year we do the snowmen, and I'm never quite as happy with the decorations on those as the other cookies. So I think next time I do these gingerbread cookies, I'm just gonna leave those cookie cutters out and just make more of the other shapes that I enjoy decorating more. My husband did that rather gruesome gingerbread man up there who's missing limbs, but I think he largely just wanted to eat a bit of a cookie early. I loved this candy cane trick, and I think that they ended up actually being my favorite cookies. It was just so simple, and again, it just makes it look like you did quite a bit more of decoration than what you actually did. So just doing those white dots right on top of that white icing, right up through the middle. Taking that toothpick, dragging around the outside edges, and then back on the inside. I think I want to learn more of these kind of easy, like wet on wet cookie decorating tricks. Because again, it's just so easy. And they just turned out so cute. And here I am just sprinkling some of that granulated sugar on top of the stockings, just to give them a bit of that sparkly, fuzzy texture that we had seen on the snowman. Then I filled in 3 stockings with our red icing, and my husband did 3 with the green. Next, I wanted to finish filling in the rest of the snowmen, and you can see that my husband had already experimented a little bit with putting snow on one tree, and then he decided he really didn't like that, so he just decided to do a zigzag of red, kind of like red tinsel on the others. And then once he was finished with that, I started just filling in the snowmen with the icing. And he helped by starting to kind of spread out the icing with a toothpick. And at this point is when he realized how much easier using the tip of the toothpick was. We decided to experiment on this sad gingerbread man and promptly realized that we hated the all white look and that I think that we would just be better off doing little white faces. And I suppose that I could have like decorated, the white hands and legs a little bit to make it look like clothes and then just done a little white face, but I think that we were just so averse to this one, we decided like we would do none of that and we would only do the little faces. I'd have fun with this one and do kind of like a screaming mouth. And then the smile on this poor guy kind of turned out rather goofy. But then I just did cute little faces for the rest of them. And then later we did actually decide to go back on the sweaters once those were fully dry and do some little decorations, but I don't think I filmed that, but you can see them at the end. We only had a little bit of green icing left, so I decided just to finish off the snowman's top hats with the last of it. We had lots of white icing left over though, so I went around and did these these cute little ornaments on the trees with just white dots. And I actually really like how the trees turned out. I think that they looked really cute. And you can still see a lot of texture from the icing, which is just because I made it so thick to have it be easier for my husband to work with. But I honestly think for some of the cookies, like the trees and the stockings that you'll see, it kind of works. Now I'm going to show you all of our cookies all finished. Here are the trees that I was just working on. And then our gingerbread men with the sweaters that we decided to decorate a bit more. And the snowmen, which turned out kind of sad, and we should have maybe actually planned what we wanted to do with them beforehand. Here are the candy canes and stockings. And I did put some little polka dots on a few of the stockings too, but I love how the candy canes turned out. And here are the cookies all packaged up to bring to my in-laws. Like I said, we had a lot of fun decorating these cookies together. I think during the busy holiday season, it was just great to spend a little time doing kind of a silly little fun activity like this. I hope that you enjoyed this kind of thrown together video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and a great holiday season. Goodbye.